Hello, and welcome to Step by Step Painting with me, Christine Macshane. Now today we're going to be doing a wonderful snow scene, and it's a really great basic exercise because we're going to include lots of different ways of creating texture and interest in a painting that's really quite a simple piece. And these are good techniques that will fold into other paintings as you progress in your painting life. As you can see, the snowman painting has a very limited palette. In fact, if you look at our palette here, we have a lot of white, some black. I have a cadmium red light and this wonderful pyrrole red and a great chrome orange. We want the bright reds and oranges. I think those are kind of going to stand out better. We don't want all the ochres and the grayed out colors. I have a cerulean blue, and this is a lovely mid-tone blue. It could be a cobalt if you have that, and then a little bit of a teal, just to add some interest. And this is important when you're using kind of a not monochromatic, but a limited palette. You don't have to stay with one blue or one yellow or one orange. You can bring in sort of a series of those colors so that you're still staying within your limited palette tones, but you can actually have a lot of impact with all the colors that you're going to add to it. So let's get started. Now the other thing we're going to be using is a cling wrap, and we're going to use that to pounce up in the background. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to place all of the colors for the sky up on the top, and then we're going to use the cling wrap to pounce it and create that sort of misty, faraway, snowing feeling. And we're going to use a lot of white in this painting, so we have a lot of white ready. So I'm actually going to put some white on there. I need a little bit of black. I don't often use black, but it's actually used in moderation, like in this. We're doing pretty good with that. So some cerulean blue. Now, when you do any kind of technique where you're lifting and putting paint back down and up, you have to put enough paint up on the canvas. Otherwise, it absorbs immediately into the canvas, and you really have nothing to move. So I'm starting off in one corner. I'm taking my saran wrap and I'm placing it over the top. The first thing I'm going to do is smush so that there's some of it left on the canvas, and then I'm going to pick it up. Kind of, if you'd seen us on the episode we did the rooster, we did this same process, and we're going to lift, and I'm not in a hurry to move my way across. I just want all of those colors to start softly, lightly blending into each other. And when you pull it off, take a look and see, there could be some more black. Now, the other thing you can do with this is kind of create some long line striations rather than that'll take all that blotch out of it. See how I'm crossing over it now. I'm staying in that same area until I get some of that looking less blotchy. And I'm going to come back and approach that in a little minute when I move on first. Again, picking up my white, laying that in. I'm literally just emptying my brush, cleaning my brush off on the canvas. Here we go. I might throw a little bit of teal up here and a tiny bit of black. And you can put it in over the top of the colors too. You don't have to keep them separate completely. We just don't want it all to look like one color, is why we're doing it this way. Plus, it gives us that great texture that we're looking for. And if it starts to get dotty or blotchy, do some rubbing onto the canvas. Don't rub the canvas with your plastic, but you can certainly rub this across there. I'm just going to keep going. We're almost to the other side, and I can transfer some of this off on there. When we do this in class, once people get started, it's hard to make them stop because it's quite addictive. It's quite a lot of fun doing this. And this is a great project to do for Christmas or just in the winter with your kids or grandkids. As you can see the appeal immediately, I'm sure, with that. And we'll go again one more time. I'm going to just lay that in pretty thick, and then this time I'm going to add a little bit more of the black in here. Now put the first layer on. I can see where I'd like to fill in some of the color. I like the blue in there, but there's a lot of black and white that can really create that little atmosphere that I'm looking for. I always like to have a second piece of this handy, because sometimes when you're just holding it, you forget which side has the paint on, and then you can smear it all over your hand, which isn't a problem for me, but it can be messy. So now I'm picking up the gray and white mostly, and I'm giving a second layer here. Now we're starting to see that snowstorm in the background happening. There we go. Yeah. There we go. Okay, so we're back over here. We're going to keep moving, and I think we are just about done with my snowstorm effect in the background. And see how you can create those nice ridges? That really does add to that effect. If it's too blue in some areas, get that gray back over. There you go. And this is a great, when you get to this sort of point, it's a good idea to step back from your piece and take a look and see what the effect is from a distance. It's going to be a little bit different from up front. And so, we talk a lot about editing and stepping back from your painting, and this is a good place to do that. Now the second sort of texture we're going to be using is going to be in the front here to create that hillside. So the first thing I want to do is put in the dark. Now a snow scene we imagine as being largely white. But again, you have to save that white for the lightest part, which is going to be just a little bit. Everything else is going to be some sort of a tone of white. And in this case, the tone will be in a blue-gray. So I'm going to take my white and I'm going to put that up on here. It's already got a little bit of black in it from having used it, the brush. I didn't clean my brush necessarily. I'm using that mid-blue and the cerulean blue and black. And I'm putting in some loose under color. And again, taking some black, some blue, some white, and I'm going to create the hillside. It's going to be from slightly above halfway, all the way dipping, and then slightly below halfway. And then I'm just going to fill some of that in. As you can see, I'm not looking for one particular color because we're going to assume that there will be some shadows cast by things off from the painting. So that could be a darker shadow or a lighter shadow. And they'll be underneath the snow or peeking out from the snow. So I'm going to put that on, nice and rich. As you can see at this point, we haven't even addressed the snowman because he will sit up here on top. So there we go. Now, you can wait for that to dry, but you don't have to. You can actually let it dry up a little bit of the way, which is what's going to happen here. And some of it can be actually blended in with the white. Now, I like to use this sort of a plastic scraper. You can find it in the hardware store, actually, for dry, patching. And this is the spatula that we use. You can get this at any art store. So I'm going to use my white paint, and I'm going to just skim it up on top of my scraper. And what I want to do is make sure wherever I first hit the canvas is going to be where I want the whitest part. So let's say I really would like it to be at the top because I want there to be a really high contrast between what's the back and what's the front. So I'm going to hit that layer, and then I'm just going to scrape real lightly. And by pulling away, see how my arm is moving out away from the canvas as I pull down? So I'm pulling down and out, and then that leaves it open and you get a really nice speckledy look. If you've ever done any drywall or skip troweling, you'll be excellent at this. So, and remember, it's not all just one slope. So maybe there's another little ridge here, kind of trying to put yourself at the scene, and maybe the drift went this way. And we don't want it too straight maybe, so we can push a little up. And then maybe there's another little drift coming back down here. It doesn't matter that it's behind the snowman, because whatever we see will relate to what's continuing on after it. We don't want it to look kind of fractured and unrelatable. So there we go, coming underneath. See how some of that black is showing? That nice dark area is good. We still feel like we're in a snow scene, even though there's dark involved. It's good. All right, keep going. A little bit up here. So I'm going to show you what it's like with the smaller one as well. I happen to like these bigger ones, but let's take a look at what the smaller one will do. So I know that my snowman's going to sit here, and I want a little bit of melted ice underneath him. So I know I don't want to cover the whole thing. So I'll go ahead and scrape some through here. See how it breaks up really nicely. And my goal is not to cover all of that great underneath color. It's just to use it as a highlight. So let's say maybe there's a bit of a slurry of melted snow here, or snow that's kind of sort of, you know, thinner. So we can do a little bit of blending with this one. And then maybe there's a little bridge here. See how you can just sort of kind of get carried away in your snow scene a little bit. That's what you should be doing. You should be there. And we also don't want the whole thing to be white. First of all, there'd be no interest if it was just all white. And second of all, we wouldn't be able to see the snowman. He would be white on white. And that would kind of be a tough sell, I think. So I'm kind of liking that there's this kind of little ridge here. All right. So there is our background. So what we want to do when we're painting, and if you're kind of trying to paint in a certain time sort of limit, we want to decide where we're going to paint next. So this area is white, so I don't want to go straight in with my snowman. So I'm going to go back into the background and put my background trees in. And so for those, I'm going to be using this smaller brush. It's a size 4 bright. And I'm just going to use black. And this is kind of versatile brush, because if they're new, they're nice and slender on the edge. So I can come in and chisel just really softly, just really thin tree shapes. I can also, on these ones, add that blue into the black. And then that can kind of set some of the trees even further back. Trying to go right up through the top there. So when we have small, thin trees behind the bigger trees at the front, we're creating much more perspective without there having to be this line, a pathway or something like that we've often used before for perspectives. So now I know that my snowman's here, so I'm going to kind of just very gently create the illusion of bringing the eye into that area, just very softly. And I'm going to do that by just having a couple of these trees leaning slightly in that way. So it's going to bring your eye there. Real soft. I don't want a lot of hard lines there. Now I'm just going to pick up the black, and I have a large tree. Now he's essentially straight up and down, but I'm going to give him a slight lean. Again, trees are not perfectly straight. It isn't until they get to the lumberyard that they get planed into nice straight lines, so we don't need to worry about whether our trees are straight lines. The only thing we want to remember is that the base of the tree is going to be wider than the top, even if it's ever so little. Not looking for a lot of detail on these, but now I can put the second one in. And I'll put a third one here, and I'm not worried about whether it blocks anything I've already done, because in real life it will. And let's put and one here. They're looking a little bit too even, but we'll change that when we put some branches on. Right, so let's put a branch here, and and there. And that one can stay still. This one can, this one can come right across there. All right. So I think that's looking pretty good. So now let's create our snowman. Again, we're going to be painting a white snowman. So underneath, I'm going to create more of a blue, grayed out snowman. I might even throw a little more teal in this time, just to change the color up slightly from what's around him. There we go. I'm going to go a circle, colored in, and then slightly bigger. And then the biggest of all. And I'm going to make him a little bit fatter here, kind of squished out. And I'm not concerned about what I'm covering up. You can't be too connected to all the pieces until you finish. Sometimes people don't like to cover up stuff because they really like the effect, but it doesn't work for the whole painting not to cover it up. So you kind of have to be able to let go, that's for sure. Okay, there's our snowman. So you can either use your brush or you can go back to using your fabulous scraper. So if you look at this one, we use this big wide edge, but it also has this little smaller edge too. And if you like, that gives you a little bit of sculpting ability here. So you can come around and sort of scrape the snow on as well. You can do it that way. That's fun. Or you can use your smaller brush, and I'm just going to, it'll do, if you use your brush, as you can see, it blends a little bit, which can be to your advantage if you want some, a lighter color or a blend underneath, so it's kind of a little more subtle. Let's go there, and then I'm going to put some of that white on top of that. Again, not trying to completely cover up what we can use in terms of the blue as shading. I'm going to move on down to this one. While that's dry, the second one is drying a little bit. Then I can come back and put more of the white on. I'm going to leave some of that blue around the edge on the bottom one in particular. That way I have a real clear delineation between the snow and everything around, just in case I didn't get enough the other way. All right, now let's go back to our second one. I'm not cleaning my brush with water between. I'm actually just wiping off any extra that I picked up because it's probably going to have more blue in it than I want. So I'm going to now add the white on. All right, so we're going to let our snowman sit there, and we're going to come back to the trees behind, and I'd like to have a little bit of shadowy interest in there, so I'm going to use that middle color blue and put a little bit of blue in there so they're not just flat. And I don't need to do it to all of the trees, but certainly the most obvious trees can get a little bit of blue reflection. Here we go. And then I want to put a bit of black underneath. I didn't clean my brush, so it still has blue in it. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of black, and I'm going to put that just slightly underneath him, give him a little shadow. You can use your finger just to make that softer, just to sit him in the snow. So while I have my black, I'm going to create the hat. This one is a beanie, so I have a little round circle, and it's all wonky woolly on top of his head. And then you want it to go on his head, of course. So let's cut across and come down. A lot of times people will put the hats on their head and sitting right up on the very top. It has to come down just below where the eyes will be. Okay, so that's that. So while that's drying, let's put a little bit of snow up on the boughs of the trees. I'm taking a small amount of white, and you can just put a little bit on some of those tree boughs where it would hit. Don't want to overdo that, but it certainly helps add to the illusion. And there we go. Cool. All right, now I'm going to switch. I'm going to switch to my small round, it's kind of a number 2 or a number 0 round brush. And I'm going to pick up a blob of black. Now the eyes are made of coal or rock, so they're not perfectly round again. I'm going to put those just here, blob my paint in, and then this is going to help me decide where I want my carrot nose to go. All right, so with that I'm going to clean my brush, and I'm going to pick up a significant amount of the orange because I know that my snow is wet. So I need to have enough that it'll lay on the top. And I want the nose to go from mid of the face up and into a long triangle, somewhat carrot shaped. Yep. Again, picking up a little bit of black. And I'm going to use this for 2 reasons. One of them to put the mouth on. Just really the lightest of touch. And then again, a little bit of black just underneath the nose around the bottom. We don't need it to look like a moustache, but just a little bit of a shadow there to kind of anchor the nose in. So we have a couple of earmuffs in black. And then we have twiggy arms, again in black. And I'm going to lift them up because he's happy it's snowing. So we want him to come right up here. And again, wiggly is best. I've got a little bit of white on there from picking it up, which actually works really well in front of that black tree. And then it's a twig. You just found the twig because it could be anywhere. So you don't have them, they don't have to look like hands, but they have to look like that was the intention when you pick them up. And we can put a little bit of white on top of these. To help them stand out. And you know, he's been standing there a while, so maybe there is a bit of snow on them. And then let's throw some rocks for buttons. 1, 2, 3. And now I'm going to take that middle-sized brush, number 4, bright again, and I'm going to put in his scarf. Now I've already outlined this in, colored it in black. Now the Pyrrole red is a beautiful, rich mid-tone color. We're going to use that to create his beanie. And I'm not covering up all the black, as you can see. I can use that as an outline almost. Now the problem with adding white to red, if you want to make highlights, is that you're going to make pink. So unless you want pink, you wouldn't add the white to the red. What I do is I look for something a lighter red. In this case, the cadmium red light hue is a really nice supplement for a lighter red. So I'm going to come in here, put his little collar on for his scarf, and it's going to wrap around and tie it in a knot, and then head off out into the breezy day. I'm going to wipe my brush off, and I'm going to pick up that cadmium red light. Let's just see if we can see. There's a little bit of cadmium red light is more of an orangey red, so it kind of does add that little lightness to it. So let's say we wanted to add a little orange to that and put a little white. Let's see what happens there. It doesn't get as pink. It just sort of goes a little orange, but it's not pink. So we can actually put a little bit of that up here. See what I mean? It's not, it just looks like a lighter red without going too far in the wrong direction. Okay, so we can add a color if you want to his earmuffs, but I think he looks really great like that. The only thing that we have left to do is to sprinkle the place with snow. So there's a couple of ways to do that too. Like many things, there's lots of different ways. You can use your brush and you can get the white paint just a little bit wet. It's better too if you do this on a flat surface, so you can flick the paint this way and you'll flick the paint off. I'm just going to do it very cautiously there because I'm doing it straight up and down. Now the other way is with your finger. You can actually take the paint, again, get your finger wet, pick up the white, and you're going to flick it, really flick it. See how my finger is curled in underneath my thumb, and I'm going to flick the snow across there. This part is particularly addictive. Take it outside, take the kids outside and let them have fun making a snowstorm for their happy little snowman. So I hope you've had fun with us with the textures that we were doing today. You know, we use saran wrap, we use scrapers, but you can look around the house and find other things too that give you all of that texture. If you don't have scrapers, a stiff piece of cardboard or an old credit card even is a great way to use the textures. And when you're going out and looking at nature and you want to come home and create a painting, think about all of these different ways that you can create something fun like that with anything around you. So I hope you've enjoyed painting the snowman with me this week. And I hope you join us next week for more step-by-step painting. See you soon.